So, good day everyone. Today I'll be sharing the findings of a study that looks at the characteristics of young soccer players aged 13 to 15 years old grouped based on their skills level. First, let's talk about what this study is all about. The main focus is to investigate the physical and developmental factors that affect skill in young soccer players. Why is this important? Understanding these factors can help coaches, trainees, and sports organizations in identifying talented players and designing better programs for their development. The specific objective of this study, of course, is to evaluate the growth, maturity status, and functional capacity of these youth players and see how these aspects differ when you group them according to their skill levels. Now, let's move on how this study was conducted. For the subjects, we had 69 male soccer players ages between 13 to 15 years old. All of them were from division clubs in Porto, Portugal, ensuring we had players who were actively involved in competitive training and matches. So, we took several measurements of each player, basic body measurements, height and mass, and the maturity status. We assessed this using the pubic hair stage, which is a standard way to see how far along a young person in their pubertal development. And thirdly, we also recorded their years of experience playing football to see if practice times relates to skill. And for our additionally, we conducted functional capacity tests to measure their physical abilities, 30-meter dash to evaluate speed, and the vertical jump to measure explosive power, and third is the endurance shuffle run to test aerobic resistance or how well they can keep moving over time. Aside from physical measures, we also evaluated their actual soccer skill. We used 6 different tests covering key skills: ball control, dribbling, passing, and shooting accuracy among others. The results of these tests were combined into a single composite skill score. Based on this score, players were classified into 5 groups or quantities, from the lowest, syempre, to the highest level. And for the analysis, we use statistical methods, especially ANCOVA and linear regression. These tools help us compare the different skill groups and identify which factors actually predict or influence a player's skill level. Let's now look at what we found. First, let's see how the groups differed from each other. And the functional capacity, interestingly, when it comes to speed, 30-meter dash, and explosive power vertical jump, there was no significant difference between the skill group. In other words, faster or more powerful players were not necessarily the more skilled ones. However, there was a clear and significant difference in aerobic endurance. This was most noticeable when we compared the highest skill group to the lowest. More skilled players had better endurance. And then, let's now proceed to maturity status. I observed that most players in the highest skill groups were in the later stage of pubertal maturation, specifically stage 4 and 5 of pubic hair development. So, this tells us that highly skilled youth players tend to be more advanced in their physical maturity compared to less skilled players of the same age. So, in the body size and experience, surprisingly, there were no significant difference in this age, years of experience, height, or body mass across the skill groups. Being taller, heavier, or having played longer didn't automatically mean a player was more skilled. Next, let's identify which factors actually predict or explain a player's skill level. First, looking at growth and maturity factors alone, this explained about 21% of the different skills. Then the maturity status, this had a positive influence. Players dito who were more mature tended to have higher skill scores. And syempre yung height, this had negative influence. Taller players actually showed slightly lower skill levels. Research suggests this might be a cause of a higher center of gravity can make weak yung movements more difficult. When we added the results of the functional test, we were able to explain 29% of the variation in this skill. The additional key predictor there was aerobic resistance. The better endurance was linked to higher skill levels. We also found that age, years of training, body mass, and the combination of height and mass were not significant predictors of skill. So, to summarize our findings, youth soccer players aged 13 to 15, when grouped by skill, differ most notable and aerobic endurance, especially when comparing the best least skilled players. Pubertal status and aerobic endurance are positive predictors of soccer skill, while height is actually a negative predictor. This highlights just how closely growth, maturity, and physical abilities are connected in young soccer players. However, it's important to note that we could only explain about 29% of the variation in skill. This means that most what makes a player skilled is still unexplained by these physical factors alone. It strongly suggests that other factors like thinking ability, decision making, perception, and tactical understanding play a huge role in determining skill level. In short, talent identification and development shouldn't just look at how fast, strong, or tall a player is. We must also consider their maturity level, endurance, and very importantly, their mental perceptual skills. So thank you. That concludes my presentation, and thank you for your attention. I am now open to any questions you might have. Thank you po.